Welcome, everyone, to the Best of Markham podcast, brought to you by me, Igor Klibanov from FitnessSolutionsPlus.ca, your personal trainers for chronic conditions. Here with me today is Dr. Olivia. Olivia, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for contacting me to be a part of your podcast. So, I'm basically someone who really thrives at problem-solving people. I
Mhm.
kind of like to figure out what makes people tick. And, a big part of my work as a psychologist is kind of drives me to understand and help people understand themselves
Right.
through this brain-based kind of body relationship that we have. And as a neuropsychologist, I use the assessments that we do to not only diagnose people, but really provide them a roadmap for their reaching their goals,
Right.
which is kind of similar to what you do, right, with your fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, people generally speaking know what a psychologist is, but not many people know what a neuropsychologist is. So, what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's basically what you think about psychology, kind of understanding people's behaviors and emotions and neurology. So you combine them together. So it's really the idea of like how does parts of our brain, how do they help us learn and think and feel?
Gotcha.
That's the difference.
Got it. So do you use, I guess, certain principles of neuroscience to stimulate or inhibit different parts of the brain?
Exactly.
Okay, okay. Yeah, very, very, very interesting. So not a conventional psychologist.
Yes, not a conventional psychologist. Yes.
So how did you get to be both a psychologist and a neuropsychologist?
Yeah, I mean, for neuropsychology, I think as a kid, I always like to observe and kind of figure out like how does one person act a certain way or think a certain way, and another person kind of acts a different way and think a
Yeah.
different way in the same situation. So I think naturally I just was interested in psychology in
Hmm.
itself. But then in university, I took a course in neuropsychology.
Yeah.
And it really fascinated me the idea that different parts of our brains are associated, right? Like we can
Yeah.
actually figure out which part of the brain is like making us feel fear or which part of
Yeah.
the brain is involved in planning and organization.
Yeah.
And so that really just fascinated me. And that's how I actually ended up getting in neuropsychology. And to me, I think probably most neuropsychologists will say this, the brain is so important because it's basically the command center for our
Yeah.
body, right? It regulates movement, breathing, heart rate, like everything that we do,
Yeah.
even without our noticing.
I totally hear that. I mean, sometimes my clients ask me different things about fitness, and if it's related to pain, I'll always say everything starts in the brain.
Mm.
You have to start with a desire to move. Once you have
Yes.
a desire, you have the premotor cortex, which creates a plan of how to do it. Then it goes to then there are a bunch of other parts of the brain are involved, and there's the motor cortex,
Mm.
which also helps with the plan. You do the movement, and the cerebellum is involved in doing the movement. So different parts of the brain light up in different movements. And so it's not just the brain; it's different parts of the brain, and based on what's going on, you can figure out which parts of the brain are working well or not working well. For example, there's one of my clients asked me, "Okay, can you tell me more about the cerebellum?" Sure. You have the central cerebellum, midline cerebellum, and the intermediate and lateral cerebellum, right? Um, and so one controls, eyes and spine. One controls the proximal joints, the shoulders, hips, knees, and elbows. And one controls
Mm.
the distal joints, the ankles and wrists, and fingers and toes. So we found that very interesting that everything goes back to the brain. So it's interesting that actually you're using the principle of neuroscience in psychology.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, fascinating. Now, not only are you a psychologist and neuropsychologist, you are a clinic director.
Mm.
You're an entrepreneur, essentially. So,
Yeah.
how'd you get to be what made you decide to be an entrepreneur as well?
That's a great question. I don't think I had set out that intention
Yeah,
when I was in graduate school going to school for neuropsychology. I always imagined myself working at the hospital, and
yeah,
that's what you think when you think about neuropsychologists initially. But actually, what ended up happening was I had kids.
yeah,
And I realized that I wanted the flexibility of being able to make my own hours and be able to, take them on their field trips and things like that. So
yeah.
that ended up making me try out private practice. And then I ended up falling in love with it that I decided to quit the hospital and just kind of go full time.
Yeah, that's a huge factor that attracts a lot of people to entrepreneurship, being able to make their own schedule.
100.
Which I guess answers my next question, which is what do you like most about entrepreneurship? Obviously, running your own schedule is a fantastic thing, especially if you're a mom and you want to go on field trips and be there for your kids. Is there anything else you like about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think one of the biggest things I love is to be able to build something that aligns with my values,
Right.
right? It gives me the freedom to create services that I find meaningful, not just what we offer, but the way we operate and interact with people.
Yeah.
And then there's something really incredibly fulfilling when you kind of like have a vision and you create a real impact in people's lives.
Yeah.
And the other big part of entrepreneurship that I really like is I feel like it stretches me. I don't know if
Yes.
you feel the same way. It's like
Absolutely.
there's always something to learn, like whether it's like leadership or strategy or how to, serve clients better. I think it's actually developed me personally a lot as
Oh yeah.
well.
I can relate to that 100%. And a lot of the same stuff that attracted you to entrepreneurship attracted me to entrepreneurship. Yes, I wanted to make my own hours, but B, I wanted to work with the clients that I wanted to work. If I
Mm,
was working at a gym or a country club, which is what I was doing before I became like a business owner, um, I got the clients that I mean I didn't hate any clients, but there's just a certain type of client that I have a preference for. I really like helping people with chronic conditions, osteoporosis, diabetes, hypertension. I find that more rewarding than helping a recreational basketball player run a little faster, jump a little higher. Life doesn't change if somebody who's not a pro goes a little bit better. They enjoy basketball a little more, but their life isn't fundamentally different.
mm,
But if I can help a diabetic not be a diabetic, I have literally extended their life by 2 or 3 years. If I
yeah.
can help somebody with osteoporosis reverse their osteoporosis, their life might have been extended by 10 or 12 years. That to me is very, very meaningful and very, very satisfying. But yeah, I mean, I also like the aspect that stretches you because my background is kinesiology. In kinesiology, they teach anatomy, biomechanics, statistics, physiology, but they don't teach marketing and sales, which is what you need for small business. And I don't fault them for it because the majority of kinesiology grads don't go into entrepreneurship. I did, so I'm an exception, but I can't fault them for not getting to the exception. Um, but then I realized, oh, it's not good enough to just know anatomy and physiology to get the clients. You actually need to know marketing and sales. That's what really stretches me to figure out what marketing and sales strategies help people become personal training clients. Sales, I got that figured out a long time ago. Marketing
Mm,
is an always ongoing process. I've got four things that are consistently working very, very well. But at any given time, I'm running 3 to 5 new marketing experiments. Most are failures, but about 1 in 25 is a success. When it's
mm,
successful, I double down on that. And so at first, all I had was just word of mouth, which is a terrible strategy because it's a strategy of no strategy.
mm,
Um, it's nice when it happens, but it's not predictable. You can't push a button and predictably clients will come. You have to wait for somebody to do something. So I thought I needed to be more proactive than that. I wanted more predictability than that. So I started testing a bunch of strategies. After 46 failures, I experienced one success, and that was public speaking. So that
mm,
worked. I started doing public speaking, and then I realized I don't want to rely on just one thing. I want to have multiple things that work. Then I started testing much more things. Email marketing worked. Now I had two, public speaking and email marketing.
mm,
And as I add more and more tools to my toolbox, my revenue, my profit looks like okay, it's going up slowly, slowly, slowly. I find the thing that works. It goes up fast,
mm.
stabilizes, it goes up slowly, 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 and it goes fast for the next one and kind of in spurts. So that's something I can totally relate to in terms of entrepreneurship being a big stretch.
Yeah, and I agree. Like in psychology as well, we don't have a course either. Like we
Yeah,
never learn marketing or how to own a business, even though, psychology owns business fairly frequently. I
yeah,
remember we had one talk of a one time someone, it's a seminar, not a course, just a one-time talk from an actual private practice owner
yeah,
talking about it. But I agree. I think there should be courses, right? Especially nowadays, I feel like more people are experiencing like trying out entrepreneurship that
yeah.
I feel like it should be a course for in university that everyone should take.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And funny enough, now I actually volunteer as a small business mentor for the city of Markham,
Mm.
helping entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. So now I'm on the other side of things.
Mm.
Now I think back. I mean, I've been in business for 15 years. I'm thinking, if 15 years ago I knew then what I know now, where would I be today, right?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what are you working on right now that's exciting to you?
Right now, I recently started to explore kind of ways I can integrate technology into
Mhm.
mental health services, right? Things like maybe clinic note taking or visual report summaries, or maybe even some psychoeducational tools that clients can access. So I'm trying to figure out how to use tech to improve care, but definitely not replace it.
Yeah, yeah. How's it coming?
Yeah. It's going good. It's slow. Like I'm trying to learn all about the platforms and making sure they're very secure, right?
Yeah,
Being mental health and being a doctor, it's really important that all my client data is very secure. So I'm just trying out different platforms and seeing kind of what is a good fit.
gotcha. Anything pop to mind?
Right now I'm trying Heidi.
Yeah.
So it's a platform that kind of takes my notes and transcribes my notes, and
Okay.
then it can give me. Have you used it yourself as well?
No, no, I haven't even heard of it, but very
Oh,
interesting.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it transcribes my kind of clinical sessions,
Mhm.
and then it doesn't record, doesn't save anything, and then it can actually pull out into like a clinical note, and you can give it kind of different prompts of like what you're looking for in the note.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it's going to enhance your practice quite a bit, and your patients are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps because then sometimes it's like I don't have to worry about taking notes all the time, and I usually try not to take notes. I try to use my memory,
Right.
but then it becomes a good memory aid, and it saves me time because then I don't have to go back and write the notes all afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Very
Yeah,
handy.
and I can
Yeah,
serve more clients, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what obstacles have you encountered in your time, both as a neuropsychologist and an entrepreneur?
Hmm. Oh, sorry, what did you say?
What obstacles have you
Oh, what
encountered?
obstacles?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I feel like this is probably a lot of obstacles that
Yeah, go
entrepreneurs
for it.
have, or even us in service industries, right? We serve clients all the
Yeah,
time. So I think one obstacle is learning to balance the emotional demands
yeah,
of like clinical work and serving your clients,
yeah.
uh, as well as the operational side of running your business, right? So when I'm sure it's the same as you, when you're with a client, you're deeply present with your client,
Yes.
right? But then as an entrepreneur, you have to think about decisions that supports like the long-term health
Yeah.
of the business. And I'm still learning. I feel like it's a continuous practice in figuring out setting boundaries and protecting my time for strategy as a business and then self-care, right? So that I can still show up fully with other people.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I mean, I think one of the first books most entrepreneurs read about entrepreneurship is called The E-Myth. You ever read it before?
Yes.
Yeah, and it says there you should be working on your business, not in your business.
Mhm.
And I really took that to heart. And so at first, my goal when I was just starting out was just to get enough clients to have, a full-time job essentially, like 35, 40 hours per week. I got there within about a year and a half, and then I had more clients than I could handle. So I
Mm.
started hiring additional trainers and offloading additional clients to them. So I went from a full schedule all the way down to where I was only training 2 or 3 hours per week. And
Mm.
then I thought, okay, so I'm now working on my business. And then I
Mm.
realized, why did I become a personal trainer in the first place? Because I don't
Mm.
want to sit in front of a computer all day long. But when I was working on my business, I was sitting in front of a computer all day long. And
Yeah.
I started to actually miss training clients. So then
Mm.
I kind of found a happy medium. I didn't want to do 40 hours per week because it didn't allow time for marketing, admin, sales, etc. But I didn't want to do 2 or 3 hours a week either because I actually like training clients. I like being in
Yeah.
the gym. So now, I guess for the last 6, 7 years, I kept a schedule of 15 to 20 client hours per week, and the rest of my time is spent on all the other stuff, admin, marketing, sales, team building, and so on.
Yeah, I think I found that balance as well. Like, or I'm trying to. Like I'm the same. I do maybe about like 15 hours, 10 to 15 hours of client work, like
Yeah,
direct client care, right? Then
exactly.
there's all the other things that go with it. And then the rest of the time I'm trying to, yeah, build up the team and like, doing marketing and all the other kind of business entrepreneur things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Speaking of marketing, what are you using for marketing? How are you getting new clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we use different things. So one of them is word of mouth, of course. We do good services. People do come back or they hear about us. I do try to connect with different people in the community. So we have certain physicians, certain individuals in like we have autism clinic that we work with, certain people in the kind of in the area also that tell clients about us.
Yeah.
And then we do have a bit of SEO work. I do have someone who does some SEO work for us.
Mhm.
And that's about it, actually. Those are our biggest marketing.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
what percent of your clients come from SEO versus referrals, not from your existing patients, but from referral partners?
What percentage comes from referral partners, you would say?
Referral partners versus SEO.
I would say most of it's referral partners. I would say highest percentage are referral partners.
So that's working extremely
Yeah.
well for you, right?
Yes, for
Well,
sure.
one of the hardest things I found was establishing relationships or partnerships with doctors.
Mm.
It might be easier for you, but for me, when I try to go, when I try to walk into a doctor's office to create some kind of partnership, first I
Yeah.
don't see the doctor, I see the receptionist. And
Yes.
if I finish my first sentence, the answer is get out of my clinic. So how
Yeah.
do you manage to establish so many relationships with doctors and practitioners that are very, very difficult to see?
Yeah, for sure. So what we've done is I think because first of all, we kind of sent letters, which I
Yeah,
think helps because, if a doctor gets a letter, they have to open it.
Yes.
Because you don't know what the letters is, right? And then, and like you said, if you go into the office, you're right, you're going to get the receptionist. The doctor's busy,
Yeah.
right? So even when I get mail, and I sometimes get mail from different people in the community as well, I always open it because you don't know what it is and you have to open it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that is a good strategy because it forces them to at least take a look at it.
Gotcha.
And then usually with us, because we're dealing with a lot of clients, we usually ask consent from the clients to send a letter to their family doctor, letting them know, they've come here to see us, they've done an assessment, maybe what diagnoses were present,
Yeah.
as well as what the treatment we're using. So
Yeah.
sometimes we send those letters as updates, and then family doctors get to know us.
So it's not just a single letter that you send, it's multiple letters to give doctors progress updates.
Yes.
That's a great idea. Fantastic
Mm,
strategy.
yes.
Did you come up with it yourself? Do you have marketing help?
No, these are all like based on my own kind of ideas, as well as, doing a lot of readings and research about
Yeah.
marketing and things that would work.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. Brilliant. Now I know you're a mom and an entrepreneur, and you have client hours. So in the little free time you have, what do you do in your free time?
Good question. So exercise, that's really important to me. I meditate daily as well. I do some yoga. I like to read a lot. I like reading books and learning.
What kind of
And
stuff
really
do you
just,
read?
sorry?
What kind of stuff do you like to read?
I do like to read a wide variety of different things. Sometimes I'm reading something, learning about psychology. Right now, I'm rereading Conscious Parenting.
Hmm.
And then I read a lot of entrepreneur stuff. Actually, I'm reading The 100 Million Offer by
Oh
Alex.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, have you read that one?
I've read all of Hormozy's books.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You find it helpful? How is
It
it?
was listen, if I had read that book 15 years ago, it would have been like a game changer. Now,
Mm,
like I've read many books similar to that. So at this
yes.
point in my development, I read it. It was interesting, but nothing I didn't already know.
Mm.
Um, My two favorite authors in the realm of marketing are Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think the original author from whom I learned how to make good offers
Hmm.
is Jay Abraham. Uh,
Okay.
with how do you make it reduce the risk as much as possible? How do you influence
Mm.
somebody to make a good offer? So,
Okay.
I mean, Hormozy does it for like the new generation of entrepreneurs, but
Mm.
and I'm sure Jay Abraham did it for his generation. There was somebody before Jay Abraham.
What
Uh,
was his book name that you loved? Like, which book did you like the
from
most?
Jay Abraham.
Yeah.
I think it's either called How to Get Everything You Want Out of All You've Got or Getting Everything You Want Out of All You've Got.
Okay.
That's
Okay. I haven't
probably
read that one, so I'll
yeah,
put that
that's
on my list.
fantastic. It was probably
Yeah.
my first or second book I read about marketing and entrepreneurship.
Mm.
Fantastic. Dan Kennedy, I might have read 15 or 16 of his books. Uh,
Yeah.
he has a bunch of books called in the No BS series. No BS Guide
Mm.
to, are you familiar with Dan Kennedy?
Yeah, I've read one or two of his books, but not all of them.
I haven't read all of them. The
Yeah.
stuff about copywriting I haven't read, but the stuff about marketing and stuff about branding, stuff like that, that I've read. Basically says branding is BS for small businesses. So don't worry about branding. Branding should come as a side effect of your direct
Mm.
marketing, but branding doesn't make sense for small business owners.
Mm.
Um, Branding makes sense if you're selling a product or service that everybody needs. For example, maybe a lot of people could benefit from a psychologist, but not everybody needs a psychologist, but everybody needs toothpaste.
Yes.
Everybody needs a toothbrush. That's 100%. That's branding. That makes more sense. Everybody who drives a car, and that's a huge chunk of the population, needs tires. So then branding makes sense. But for small business owners, we have to be way more narrow, way more targeted.
Mm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. And since this is, after all, a Best of Markham podcast, what's your favorite business in Markham besides your own?
Yeah, this is a hard one because I feel like that there's so many businesses that I love and I connect well with, but I'm gonna go with food because I love
Of
food.
course.
So, Sen, the Japanese restaurant in Markham, is by hands down one of my favorite sushi places.
What's it called? How do you spell it?
Sen, Sen.
Daddy. Okay. Where is it?
Yeah, it's kind of there. I think it's Woodbine and Highway 7 area. I hope I'm getting that right because I know they moved, so I might have mistaken it. But you have to eat the omakase and you
Yes.
have to eat it by the sushi bar because
Okay.
that's the best experience. Because they
Duly
would
noted.
yeah, so you should definitely try it out. It's definitely one of my favorite places to go.
Okay, okay. Good to
Yeah.
know. I love Japanese cuisine.
Hmm.
It's probably my top three, maybe top five. So I
Okay.
have to check that out. I'm going to make a note for myself.
Yes, and they get their fish from Japan, so it's definitely a different feel of like the
Ooh.
fish quality. And I think it's just something the way they make the rice with the combination of the fish is just something, yeah, very good.
Oh, that's amazing. I love Japanese cuisine. There was this restaurant my wife and I went to about 3 months ago called Tanuki. That's on Woodbine and Steeles. And they have omurice. It is out
Mm.
of this world. The way we found out about it, we just typed in best omurice Markham, and that was it.
Oh, okay. And it came up.
Just came up, yeah, and it happens to be maybe 500 meters from my gym, so it's perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, fantastic.
Right close to your gym, so that's perfect too, right? To have
Yeah,
find a favorite spot right close to your work is nice.
yeah, absolutely. And last question is, how can our viewers get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find us online at www.cnew.ca. We also have Instagram at cnew_clinic. So either one of those, you can find more about us and get in touch with us.
Perfect. And for anybody just listening, it's cnew.ca.
That's right.
For anybody watching it, the all the details will be in the show notes as well. Olivia, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Good thing.